Welcome to This Week in Hastings Headline History, where we take a look back at what was making news in Hastings and St. Johns County, Florida, over a century ago. In this podcast, I'll share stories directly out of the pages of the Hastings Herald, which was published weekly in the early 1900s. So let's go back in time for some of the top news stories from this week in 1920. Record sale prices for local spuds. Returns just received from the first shipment of potatoes to leave the Hastings district in 1920, a shipment of 8 barrels by A. Weber of Federal Point, set a new record for prices. These potatoes were to be sent to New Jersey, but were caught up along the way resulting from the railroad strike and succeeded in getting no farther than Washington, where they were finally sold by the Express Company. The entire receipts for the shipment, which consisted of 4 barrels of number 1s, 3 barrels of number 2s, and 1 of 3s, amounted to $215. If you're wondering about those potato numbers, it's the grading system of the potato. Number 1 potatoes are better shaped, fewer defects, the pretty potatoes. Number 2s bake and taste the same but have more defects and some bruising, and number 3s are the next step down. Hastings spuds were holding their own this week in 1920. The local potato situation for the week remained about normal. A threatened car shortage was causing more uneasiness among local growers than any other single detail of the entire marketing situation. Telegrams were sent out by the handful, by both large growers and by handlers and buyers, to all persons they thought might have influence that could be used in bettering the situation. Prices during the latter part of the week were running $14 for number 1 potato barrels, $12 for number 2 barrels, and $7 for a barrel of 3s. Hastings forcing the county to refund a portion of taxes due to incorporation. One of the main features of the meeting of the town council Monday night was the decision to proceed immediately to force a showdown with county commissioners regarding the matter of the apportionment of the road and county taxes, which should have come to Hastings during the 3 years past. These taxes have been held up by the county commissioners under a claim that when the boulevard was paved, an agreement pertaining to a part of the roadwork included the waiving by this town of all claims on road and county taxes of that and future years. The contention of the present council is that such an agreement was never made, that the agreement which was made included only the money to be collected during the year in question, and that some doubt exists regarding the legality of even that agreement. There appear to be no records bearing on the case, which seems to have limited itself to an argument between the council and the commissioners as to whether or not Hastings will ever again have access to the funds to which it is entitled by state law. Several weeks ago, the council made a formal demand on the commissioners for the town share of the money, now said to amount to approximately $1,200. There having been no evident disposition on part of the commissioners to turn over the funds, the council Monday night placed the matter in the hands of Mack, Williams, and Perry, attorneys of St. Augustine, for collection, with every likelihood of success in the suit. Will Open Picture Show. A motion picture show, the first to be shown in Hastings since the auditorium burned, will be open tonight in a tent between the Brick Garage and that operated by Fred Flake. The show will be opened by Dr. Patrick Johnson and operated by Charles Sweeney. First-class pictures are promised for every evening during the continuation of the potato season and much longer as conditions warrant. In Elkton news, Eleanor Winton, although having had an operation for appendicitis which kept her from her studies for about 6 weeks, will be the first young lady from Elkton to graduate. Her graduation will take place on Monday, May 31st. So what were people posting in the classified ads over 100 years ago? Here's a look at a few of the items wanted and for sale. For sale, new 1920 Chandler touring car, fully equipped, 5-cord tires, driven only a short time by owner. Reason for selling? Desire smaller car. Perfect condition. Bargain. Box 465, New Smyrna, Florida. Potato crates for sale. We have on hand several thousand new bushel potato crates for which we have no use and which we offer for immediate sale and delivery. American Phosphate Company, First National Bank Building, Lakeland, Florida. Lost in Hastings or between Hastings and Palatka, a watch fob. Black ribbon, gold heart-shaped locket, diamond center. Initials SJN. Return to Hastings Drug Company and receive liberal reward. Now it's time for this week's Talk of the Times, where I give you a glimpse of what people were thinking in Hastings and St. Johns County over 100 years ago. This week there was planning underway for the upcoming Memorial Day weekend and laying flowers on graves. And that Memorial Day activity in 1920 was a newer tradition. There are conflicting reports as to what year the observance of laying flowers on military graves on Memorial Day began, but most agree it was in the late 1800s, not long after the Civil War. The deaths of over 622,000 Americans in that war caused the creation of government-established cemeteries throughout the country. Across the United States, it seems, many people got the same idea of making a note of the sacrifices given by their local soldiers and paying tribute to their war dead on a particular day. Many cities in many states claim to be the first to observe Memorial Day, but the federal government has declared it started in Waterloo, New York in 1866. No matter where it began, this week in 1920, plans were underway to observe the day locally. The members of the Chatfield Post, the Grand Army of the Republic, which was an organization created to help Civil War veterans by lobbying for pension plans, developing medical facilities, and soldiers' homes for veterans, announced in the Hastings Herald they were inviting the public to join them, attending a service at the Memorial Presbyterian Church in St. Augustine on Sunday morning. The service was to be a special one for the observance of the Memorial Day holiday. All members were asked to assemble at the plaza so they could march to the church in Mass. Then, on Memorial Day, May 31st, the members of the Post were planning to head out to the St. Augustine National Cemetery at 10:30 in the morning to honor the dead, laying flowers on the graves. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Hastings Headline History. This podcast was brought to you by Presenting the Past, bringing history back to the present through historic presentations and the sale of treasures from days gone by. This episode was written and produced by me, Michelle Murillo, with the aid of vintage copies of the Hastings Herald. Now it's time for this week's musical memory, when we listen back to a song that everyone was listening to 100 years ago. This week, folks in town were starting to make plans for the upcoming Memorial Day, and that would mean listening to more patriotic music. So, this week's song is actually a medley of songs recorded by the American Quartet. The four men making up the group of that name recorded for a number of record companies from 1899 right up through the mid-1920s. Their music was very popular, with their recording of Casey Jones in 1910 possibly being the first record to sell over 1 million copies. But this week, we're listening to another one of their hits, where they blend 4 military-related songs that were popular into one lovely medley. The songs are Rally Round the Flag, Tenting Tonight, John Brown's Body, and The Star-Spangled Banner. Here's their medley of those songs recorded in 1915, the American Quartet and their Wartime Medley.
The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Bright in its glory shines every star. We will rally round the flag, boys, rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Many are the hearts that are weary tonight, waiting for the war to cease. Many are the hearts that are looking for the right to see the dawn of peace. Bending tonight, bending tonight, bending on the old Jack Road. Bending tonight, bending tonight, bending on the old Jack Road. John Brown's body lies a-molding in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-molding in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-molding in the grave as we go marching on.